Israel's a settler colonial society. And as a settler colonial society, like other settler colonial places, the population, they choose not to see what they're doing. I wasn't just the only woman on the Palestinian side, I was the only woman on both sides. They didn't have women at all. And it showed in different ways. So one thing that was very interesting was that the Israeli side both had a level of racism towards me because I'm Palestinian, but also a sense of misogyny, which is to say that they would often treat me as though somehow I was different, a young little girl they could make remarks about or treat me as though I was a young child. Their idea of what it means to be progressive is very much a white feminist version of progressive. So, for example, one of the things that they often talk about is that they have women who serve as soldiers. All of that means is that they have the potential to be war criminals, just like men have the potential to be war criminals. There's nothing that is inherently wonderful about being in an army, perpetrating war crimes against Palestinians, terrorizing Palestinians at checkpoints and at other places. It's impossible to negotiate with somebody when they are holding a gun to your head. It doesn't work. The person who is being held hostage has very little leverage over the hostage taker. And the only leverage that you have is somehow feeding into their sense of compassion. Now, in Israel's case, there is no compassion. And not only that, why is it that we have to be in this position where we're trying to seek compassion from our victimizer? In the year 2001, there was a conference in South Africa in Durban called the Anti-Racism Conference. And at that anti-racism conference, this is the end of apartheid South Africa, right? So apartheid is over. At that anti-racism conference, Palestinian activists came together with South African activists and said, we need to start pushing to label Israel an apartheid state. And that was in 2001. And everybody laughed at us. People kept saying we were wrong, that we were foolish, that we were idiots, etc. Fast forward from that point on to the year 2021. Okay, so this is a full 20 years after the Durban conference. And now we see that it's not just Palestinians saying this, but we are also now joined by an Israeli human rights organization called Buttu, as well as Human Rights Watch. Fast forward 1 year after that, we're now at a place where Amnesty is saying the exact same thing, and the United Nations is saying the same thing too. And the world is changing. People are seeing that what Israel's doing is wrong. They see that Israel is perpetrating war crimes. And it's going to come to an end. It really is. It's taken them too long to get to this point, I'm sad to say. But Israel is seeing this, it's feeling this, and that's why it invests so much money and time and effort into trying to crush BDS, into trying to crush the use of the term apartheid. Israel's a settler colonial society, and as a settler colonial society, like other settler colonial places, the population, they choose not to see what they're doing. So for Israeli organizations, even though there are some that are good, that are out there, they're very small in number, their impact is very, very small and very limited. But they're still doing work, which I think needs to be done. One of the amazing things is we're now, to this day, is 20 years ago today, was when the Arab Peace Initiative came out. And with the Arab Peace Initiative, it was a very clear message to Israel, which is, let Palestinians live freely, end the occupation, let refugees go home, and we'll have normalized relations with you. And Yet here we found 2 years ago that countries, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, others, have normalized relations with Israel. So you have to look and scratch the surface a little bit and ask yourself, well, why? Why would these countries go against Arab consensus? Why would they go against the Arab Peace Initiative? And the answer is pretty simple. It's because these are not peace agreements with Israel. These are security arrangements. These are economic arrangements. And these security arrangements and these economic arrangements largely benefit Israel. They're not benefiting the Gulf. Believe me, they're not going to benefit the Gulf. In fact, we've already seen that the money is flowing the other way. It's flowing from the Gulf into Israel and not the other way around. Now, the part that's the most upsetting about all of this is that not only did they go against Arab consensus, and not only did they, go against BDS at a time when BDS is growing, but they claim that they're doing it for us. That's the sting. And it really stings when somebody claims that they are doing it for your own good, when we know that all that is going to come of these normalization agreements is a worse situation for us. In fact, we've seen it. Since the first normalization agreement was signed in 2020, in August of 2020, we've actually seen the number of settlements go up. Last year in 2021 alone was the time that we saw Israel demolish the most Palestinian houses. Instead of giving Israel a red light, sadly these regimes have given Israel a green light. The green light to take Palestinian land, to destroy Palestinian homes, to build more settlements. That's the part that stings the most. Now that said, I still firmly believe in the power of the Arab people. And while these regimes may have a certain stance because of security arrangements otherwise when it comes to Israel, I know that the people don't feel the same way. I know it. People around the world, doesn't matter which country, are standing with us as Palestinians and will continue to do so.